Alright, y'all. I'm here to talk about When They See Us. Y'all ready? Let's go.
I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no. I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no.
What's good, y'all? It's your boy Bright here, the R&B Kid. I'm back again with another video. But if this is your first time on my channel, please go ahead and consider subscribing. On this channel, I talk all things music and entertainment while keeping it real. I'm always trying to find the bright side of everything, alright? And after you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell so you can get the post notification. So every time I upload a video, you won't miss it, alright? Cool. Alright, y'all, so bear with me if I sound a little stuffy or weird. I'm sorry, y'all. I feel like I'm coming down with the colds. My allergies are going crazy. Y'all know it's allergy/cold season, so sorry if I sound weird, but bear with me, y'all. But like I said, I'm here to talk about When They See Us, which is the new miniseries that premiered on Netflix on May 31st, 2019. It was directed by Ava DuVernay, and it's pretty much about the Central Park 5. I already knew about the story from many years ago, but if you never heard about the story, it's pretty much a story about five. At the time, back in April of 1989, it was a story about 5 young black boys who were pretty much caught up in being investigated by the NYPD for their potential involvement in a rape case that happened in Central Park in New York. At the end of the day, none of the 5 boys were involved. None of them had anything to do with it, but they were all sentenced and committed and sentenced as guilty for the crime, and they all served sentences for many different years. I think anywhere from like 6 to 13 years. They all served a sentence for a crime they did not commit. So like I said, I already knew about the story from years ago, but I'm so glad I got to watch this miniseries because I felt like it brought a whole new level of complexity, and it brought a whole new level of detail and information about the story that I never really knew about before. I really listened to general details before, but I didn't know like the real gritty details of the story. So I'm so thankful for Ava DuVernay and her brilliance, and I'm so thankful for all the actors and just all the people who worked on the miniseries to really make it all come together. It was beautifully done, and I just want to talk about my thoughts about the story and about the miniseries itself. So pretty much breaking it down, I think the first part of the miniseries was about pretty much the rape itself on the night of April 19th, 1989, and how each of those 5 boys, Antron, Kevin, Raymond Santana Jr, Cory Weiser, and Yusuf, I think that was all 5 of them. It pretty much showed how all 5 of them in their own individual lives ended up, at Central Park around the same time, a little bit after the rape had occurred. And for some reason back then, like that night in particular in New York and Central Park, there was just a lot of people there, a lot of people around, a lot of people were hanging out, just vibing. And according to white people and these cops, they called it wilding out. And I just think it was funny how like they like represented the term and the idea of wilding out, when really it's such a harmless term. But back in the late 80s, though, I guess that was still like a new term for white people for the NYPD. So they kind of acted like it was some like alien concept that they were not used to. These boys were wilding out in the park. Really, they were just chilling out with their friends, hanging out, and they all were there for different reasons. I remember Kevin didn't even want to be there, but he just ended up being there because he wanted to see what was going on. Cory was with his girlfriend, but he ended up going to Central Park to just chill with some of his friends. Even though his girlfriend wanted him to stay with her, like he just went into the park and left her alone. He said he would have been back in 10 minutes, but we all know that didn't happen. So yeah, like I said, they all ended up in Central Park for different reasons, which I think is such an interesting part of the story. Is I think at any point, if any of them had made a different decision, the rest of their lives would have been completely different. And I think what's so interesting about this story is not only how much it shows you how much injustice is in this world, but also the power of decisions and the power of timing in this life we live. Those two things are very critical from our day-to-day. So after all these 5 boys that had been in Central Park, they all had dispersed after things got crazy at the park, and I guess sometime after the rape had occurred, they all dispersed. But while they were on foot, all going back home and minding their business, going about their lives, NYPD caught up with all 5 of them in different ways, in different places while they're going back home, and ended up bringing all of them to a police station to be, interrogated about their potential involvement in the rape case. It was only 4 that were going to go initially, but Cory Weiser ended up going with Yusuf, who was one of his best friends at the not at the time, still one of his best friends. He ended up going with Yusuf to support his friend because he didn't want him to go alone, even though Cory was not really he wasn't really looked at as a potential suspect in the rape at all, but he only went down to support his friend, which I think is interesting because, as you'll see if you watch the miniseries, Cory Weiser probably ended up having the worst fate and the worst destiny with this case. I think he served the longest sentence, and he probably had the worst treatment because he was 16, he was sent to the adult prisons when they all were sentenced, as opposed to all the other 4 boys who were sent to young adult, juvenile detention centers or whatever. So that's pretty much how the first part went down. It was pretty much just breaking down how they all came into the situation, and it pretty much detailed how they were all interrogated for hours on end without lawyers, without their parents, without their guardians, without any type of support. They were all interrogated and questioned by NYPD for hours on end with no food, no rest, no water, no nothing. And I think that part really infuriated me more than, it infuriated me beyond belief because, there's so many young people of color in this country that just don't know their rights and don't even know what they're entitled to, because it's just never taught to us in our own homes, in our schools. It's never taught to us, and it's sad because none of those boys knew that they had the right to a lawyer. None of those boys knew that they had the right to not say anything. None of those boys knew that they had the right to have their parents or their guardians with them while they were being interrogated. They all just sat there for hours and had the NYPD roast them, fuck around with them, kick them, slap them, and pretty much scare them into saying things that they didn't want to say, and they scare them into saying things that weren't even true, just to have the case have some type of foundation at the end of the day. And I think what frustrates me and almost everybody else about this story is about the fact that back in '89, the NYPD weren't really grilling these boys because they really had any type of real basis for their involvement in the case, but because they were just looking for some type of foundation for the case. Because really at the end of the day, they had no idea who really did it. They had no idea how to connect all the dots as to what was happening on the night of April 19th. But because those 5 boys were there, and because they all fit the profile of a young black man who assaulted a white woman in the park, or a young man of color, because Raymond was Latino, they were all included in this group of men who they wanted to fit the profile of men who did these things that they didn't do. So it was just really frustrating to see that. My heart broke into a million pieces pretty much throughout the whole thing, but really the first part broke my heart. Just seeing how all those boys were interrogated when they had nothing to do with it. It's almost like if as a young black man, if I put myself in that situation, that's almost like me being somewhere in Boston just chilling, but for some reason I'm next to a crime that had nothing to do with it, but because I fit the profile of a young black man who's around the area, I can get picked up by the cops and I'm interrogated for hours when all I want to do is take my ass home because I'm innocent. But because these police have a fucked up agenda and just want somebody to fit the profile just to get their case going, I'm sitting there for hours, being interrogated but had nothing to do with it. That is one of the most frustrating things in life. And thankfully, I'm a little bit more educated and I know more of my rights. But those young men back in the 80s living in the hoods of New York, I don't blame them for the fact that they didn't know what the fuck they were doing when they were being interrogated by the cops. So it's just hella sad, Joe. And another thing that baffles me about this whole story is how, as you'll see from the first part going into the second part, a big theme throughout the first 2 parts was just how, even though they were being interrogated for hours on end, there was literally no physical or DNA evidence that had been connecting any of the 5 boys to the case itself. But for some reason, even though there was no evidence, because the lawyer was able to play around with the narrative and play around with the stigma of black men assaulting white women in this country, which is a generational thing that's a whole nother story for another day. Because of that, for some reason, sentencing was still able to proceed, and as you'll see in part 2 of the series, these 5 boys ended up being sentenced in 2 different trials, all guilty, when there had, like I said, there had been no physical or DNA evidence. It's like, how the fuck you know how like how heartbreaking it is, and how hopeless it feels to know that you could literally have no type of DNA or physical evidence that connects you to a crime, but because they have nobody else in contention for a suspect, and because the NYPD or any other police department in this country doesn't want to do the hard work of really figuring out who the fuck did a crime, they automatically sentence you to being guilty for a crime that you had nothing to do with. You know how heartbreaking that is for any person in this world? Like, I don't even know what I would feel if I was sentenced as guilty for a crime that I did not commit, simply because my local police department didn't want to put in any work to figuring out who the fuck was really connected to the crime, just because I fit the profile of who was involved in the crime. It doesn't make no sense, and that shit was just extremely heartbreaking and just extremely frustrating as hell. You know, it's sad that being a young man that's near a crime means you could be sentenced and you could be guilty for that crime even though you had nothing to do with it. It's just, it's just sad. Like, being near a crime shouldn't automatically mean that you're involved, and it shouldn't automatically mean that you're gonna get a sentence for it. And that goes for all races, not just being black or brown. Like, that goes for all races. Even if you're white, you should never be afraid of being potentially sentenced as guilty of a crime that you didn't commit just because you were near a crime scene, or just because in some type of circumstantial evidence. That's what our justice system is here for. It's there to do the hard work of figuring out who really did crimes and who really committed guilty deeds. Like, that's what it's there for. It's not there to just put people in jail because they need a face or a body. The justice system was made to put the real people who do real crimes in jail. But unfortunately, we know that's not how that always goes, So yeah, we go into the second part of the series, which pretty much shows how their families are coming together to get lawyers and to get get some activism going to get them off of this case. And by the end of the second series, you'll see that even with all the stuff they did, they were all sentenced as guilty, right? And as we go into the third part of the series, the third part really focuses on really how they all kind of experienced their jail time. At least all the four boys besides Cory, how they all experienced their jail time, and how they all dealt with coming out of jail and trying to get back to rebuilding their lives after they all came out of jail. And I think I would say most of part 3 focused on Raymond Santana Jr. And the relationship with his dad and his stepmom, and trying to really do better and live his life, and trying to apply for jobs and do all this stuff, but to no avail. And I really loved how Ava DuVernay really illustrated that whole story, because Raymond Santana's story is a story that millions of men and women around this country can relate to, of good people who got caught up in some bullshit, whether they were guilty or not guilty, and they try to come out of jail and do better and get good jobs and really take themselves out of the system. But there's so many things that are just constantly pulling them back into the system, or there's so many things that are blocking them from reaching that blessing, and really blocking them from living life the right way and doing the right things. As you can see from part 3, Raymond Santana Jr. was trying to do so many things to live his life right. He was trying to apply for good jobs, legit legal jobs, and no one wanted to hire him because he was a felon, and it almost felt like there was no opportunities for him to really get his life going the way he wanted to. And so when you're at that point of feeling hopeless, a lot of times different people go back into illegal shit because they feel like there's no other options for them. Thankfully I'm blessed to have a life where I'm educated. I've been able to go to school, but I know I can empathize and know what it feels like to be someone who maybe didn't get your full education, comes from a bad neighborhood, and when you've been in jail and you're in the government system, feeling like you can never get out because whether you're on parole or they got you on this or on that type of rule, that whether you're on curfew or whatever, like all these things that just hold you back from really trying to take that next step to rebuild who you are and rebuild your life. It's just really sad, So that's pretty much what part 3 showed us. It was just the 4 boys besides Cory trying to rebuild their lives. And some did it better than others, but it just showed that dynamic, and I loved how Ava DuVernay really illustrated that, and part 4, which to me was probably my favorite part of the whole series, really illustrated Cory Weiser's story in particular. It really showed the depth of the struggle and the pain that he went through as the only one of the boys who was 16, So like I say, he was sent to the adult prisons, and I can only imagine what it would have been like to have been a 16-year-old in an adult prison, and everybody is fucking with you, and nobody wants to let you breathe and to let you be, because they see you as one of the 5 boys who raped an innocent white woman in Central Park, even though he did not do it. So for years, Cory Weiser was, you know, because he was requesting to move to different jails, he moved from jail to jail, usually farther and farther away from Harlem, his home, and he had to deal with constant abuse from guards, inmates. He was always alone, you know, in solitary confinement, and he had to deal with so much mental abuse through other people and through his own self, just trying to cope, you know, on the day-to-day being in jail, being such a famous inmate that he was, you know. So it was an amazing part. It pretty much summed up everything by showing how he really got at the worst out of everybody, and it showed how pretty much I think in 2001 or 2002, Matias Reyes, which actually was an inmate who Cory Weiser encountered, I think somewhere in the mid-90s, Matias Reyes came forward after realizing who Cory Weiser was, and after feeling bad for the fact that Cory Weiser was living a sentence that he should have been living, he should have been doing. Matias Reyes finally came forward to some NYPD officials, and admitted that he was the one who raped the woman who was jogging on the night of April 19th, 1989. So after Matias Reyes came forward, they pretty much went through a whole bunch of shit and ended up exonerating all 5 of the Central Park, all 5 of the Central Park 5, I think in 2002, which I was happy to see, and I was happy to know that happened, but unfortunately it was 13 years too late. You know, those men's lives have been turned upside down for indefinitely, for crimes they did not commit, all because the NYPD didn't want to do what it was supposed to do. And it makes me wonder what would have happened if Matias Reyes never came forward. It makes me wonder if they would have never been exonerated. It makes me wonder how long Cory Weiser would have continued to stay in jail. It just makes you wonder, you know? And those are sad things to think about. Those are real questions, you know? So yeah, man. What makes me really sad about Matias Reyes and how he finally came forward was the fact that, as you can see in part 4, Matias Reyes had committed crimes before the Jogger case and multiple crimes after the Jogger case. Like, he had raped and assaulted multiple women in New York after the Jogger case, but for some reason the NYPD was never able to put 2 and 2 together, and that shit just frustrates the fuck out of me, because it's like y'all turn these men's lives upside down, and y'all have 5 men in jail for years who had nothing to do with the crime, but no one in the NYPD ever said, you know what, there's this man Matias Reyes who is connected to all these, you know, all these rapes and all these assaults on different women in New York. Did y'all never think to yourselves, okay, maybe could he be a suspect in the Jogger case? Like, could he be a potential, you know, person who was involved? It never happened, and the NYPD never ever put 2 and 2 together, and that shit frustrates me, because like I said, that's what y'all are there to do, you know? It's just sad, man. It's just sad. You know, instead of the NYPD to do the real work of having connected Matias Reyes to the crime back in the 80s and 90s when they should have, they simply took the easy way out, and they didn't want to look stupid after they convicted all those 5 men, and they just let it rock and they let it go, and they just let the case evaporate into air, even though they knew none of those 5 boys had done what they did. So it's just a really sad look on the NYPD's department, but it's definitely not surprising. It ain't surprising at all. That was pretty much my breakdown of like each part of the series. But in terms of my overall thoughts on the series and on this case in general and on the story in general, this Central Park 5 story is such a powerful story in Black history, and it's such a powerful story for everybody to really know about and to learn from, because really those 5 boys could have been any other 5 boys in New York, and it could have been any other 5 young Black boys in this country, including myself if I had been of that age around that time in New York. And it just gets me thinking on what it meant back then and what it means now. Technology wasn't as good as it was back then, but we still see the same patterns and we still see the same circumstances in present day. We still see you know, racial profiling at, you know, on crazy levels, whether that's in people's own personal lives or whether that's on the part of police. We still see racial profiling as such a powerful tool in this country to really criminalize and really belittle good people in this world, especially young people of color. The same injustices that we saw back then in the 80s and 90s are still going on now. We still have young brothers and sisters being shot up by the police when they have done nothing wrong, just chilling in their cars, minding their business. We still have young people being shot. We still have young people of color being shot in their homes when they've done nothing wrong. You know, it's just sad. You know, that this shit happened back in '89, but in 2019, 30 years later, we are still going through the same things, and we're still seeing the same things. And you would think with 30 years of history and of you know, 30 years later in the future, you would think things will be better, but things have not changed at all. And me as a young black man walking down the street, I could be minding my business and I could still get caught up by the police for some bullshit. I don't know. That's why it's sad that as a young black man, compared to my white counterparts or compared to my Asian counterparts, you know, me and my fellow Latino young men of color, we have to put an extra guard on ourselves, and we have to put on an extra, you know, an extra layer of protection and an extra layer of defense when we walk out into the world, because we don't know what the fuck we can get into. And our mothers and fathers never know when it could be the last day that they'll see us, you know, because of our justice system. And it's just sad that we're still seeing the same things, and these things are cyclical. History repeats itself, and it's just sad that these things are still going on. But that's why I'm thankful for Ava DuVernay and for the actors in this miniseries and for this story, for bringing and shining a light on all the bullshit that goes on in this world. Like I said, I already knew about the story. We already know about all the injustices in this world, but I'm so thankful for this story, for really opening up a lot of people's eyes to the bullshit that has happened in this world, and to the bullshit that can continue to happen, and that does continue to happen to innocent people day in and day out. I've always known about people being in jail who shouldn't be because they're innocent. But this miniseries really got me thinking about all the people who are in jail right now who are innocent, who just never done anything, but for some reason they've had their lives stripped from them because they were connected to a case or some type of, you know, situation in some type of way, even though they were not involved. My heart goes out to the Central Park 5 and to all the young people out there who've had their lives stripped away and who've had to deal with constant trauma and PTSD from having their lives taken from them, from having to deal with a lot of pain and struggle in the criminal justice system and in the prison system, and just from attacks on their character and on who they are as people, because of false accusations of rape or assault or whatever, you know. The Central Park 5, they were all given a settlement, I think of like $40 or $41 million, I think back in 2014, by the city of New York. But honestly, no type of amount of money can give you back that time you lost in your life. You know, they all got their lives taken from them when they were young kids. Like, I got to live my adolescence in my young adult years. I'm now 25 now. But imagine not being able to live your life and you just automatically sent off to jail when you're like 13, 14, 15, 16. And you know, when you come back, you are a grown-ass man. You never got to live your life as an adult on your own terms. I mean, you never got to live your life as a kid on your own terms. I can only imagine what that feels like for anybody who's had to deal with that when they didn't deserve it, you know. So like I said, my heart goes out to the Central Park 5, to Kevin, Yusuf, Antron, Raymond, Cory. I'm so, my heart is full for what y'all have been through, and I pray that y'all's story continues to be a story that'll be one that will give people a source of not sadness, but a source of strength to be more aware and to be more cognizant of what's really going on, and I hope it's a story that allows people to really be more alert as to what's going on when they leave their house, and as to what's going on in our communities, and to the injustices that we're all facing in our communities, you know. Okay, one more thing. I want to talk about Donald Trump and Felicity Huffman. Felicity Huffman, her role as Linda Farstein was a definition of bad timing. Bad timing. She was portraying a trash ass person while being, you know, found guilty of, like, you know, finessing the college acceptance system. It's just bad timing all around. So Felicity Huffman, shout out to you, but bad timing, bad timing, bad timing. And Linda Farstein, it's sad that we have a woman like her breathing air on this earth. Linda Farstein literally forced herself and convinced herself that all 5 of those boys had been a part of the crime, even though she knew there was no damn evidence, there was nothing linking any of those men to the crime. And she continued to convince herself for years that she was right about condemning all these boys to the case. So Linda Farstein, wherever you are in life, you know, all your books, I hope they burn in hell. You're a trash person, and I hope you learn from this situation, and I hope karma comes around in the way it needs to for you. And I'll move on from you and go on to Donald Trump. Donald Trump took out, I think he spent like $65,000 or $85,000 back in 1989 or like 1990 for an ad condemning the 5 boys and pretty much saying that they were guilty, even though they were not. And since 1989, Donald Trump has never come out and said that he apologizes for what he did, or that he feels sorry, or that he regrets having, you know, been a part of, you know, creating this like negative narrative and stigma and stereotype around these 5 men. And he never ever spoke on the fact that they were exonerated. All he said was, you know, the evidence was there and they were guilty and NYPD did their part and the case is over. But it's like, bro, they were fully exonerated. Matias Reyes confessed to the crime, and Matias Reyes' DNA was linked to the case and the rape itself. And Donald Trump, after all these years, it's been 30 years, he never has come out and just said, yo, my bad, my fault, they were wrong, I was wrong, let's move on. He never ever did it. And this is the current president of our country. I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Alright, man, but that wraps up my review of When They See Us. Let me know if you think I missed anything when I was talking about the miniseries itself, or if I missed anything about the case or the story. Let me know if I missed anything. I hope you guys have watched it. I know a lot of people are scared to watch it because they don't want to really like be like, you know, re-traumatized by the story, but I really encourage all of you to watch it. Don't be scared to watch it. I know it's hard. It's not an easy watch. It's a very sad watch. I know a lot of people have been crying. A lot of people have been sad. I totally understand, but I really feel like this is something that we all need to watch. Not just black and brown people, but white people. Everybody needs to watch this story to really learn something, you know. So please don't be scared to watch it. It's such a necessary watch. I encourage all of you to watch it. Don't be scared. Please do it. Do it on your own time, on your own terms, whenever you need to, whenever you're ready. But please don't avoid watching this film and this miniseries. I really encourage all of you guys to watch it. It is so necessary. And before I get off, I just want to spend a special shout out to Ava DuVernay for directing the fuck out this miniseries. She did her thing. Amazing work. Thank you, mama. And thank you to Bradford Young for his cinematography. It was beautiful. And I also want to send a special shout out to all the actors who did an amazing job. But a special shout out to Jarrell Jerome. A special shout out to you, my guy. You are amazing in Moonlight, but I think this was his breakout role. I think this was finally the role that allowed the world to see Jarrell Jerome's talent. I think he's definitely a great upcoming talent. I can't wait to see what he does in the future. He's an amazing actor, and his portrayal of Cory Weiser was just so brilliant, so powerful, so heart-wrenching, so masterfully executed. So well done, like on some Oscar level type shit, like on some real shit, like some Oscar level, Oscar worthy performance type shit. Like Jarrell Jerome just killed his role as Cory Weiser, and it probably was my favorite part of the whole miniseries. So I just want to give a special shout out to you, Jarrell. You killed it, and I can't wait to see where you go in the future. But yeah, man, I'm sending all my love and light to all of you guys. I don't want you to be afraid to watch this miniseries. Please do it, and don't let this miniseries bog you down. Don't let it get you sad. I know it's some hard stuff, but I want this miniseries to uplift us and to hopefully look forward to a day when they will see us for who we are, and not who they think we are, like I said. So yeah, man, we will get to a brighter day in the future. We will get to a brighter day, but for now we got to do the hard work of just learning how to be better and encouraging our fellow person, and encouraging our fellow, human and mankind to just be better all around. We all need to do better, and that's it. So yeah, man, I'm gonna end off like that. Like I said, comment down below what y'all thought about my review of the miniseries and what y'all thought about the miniseries itself, and let's talk below in the comments. Okay, appreciate y'all. If you haven't already, hit this video with a like, share this video, and subscribe to my channel. Appreciate y'all. And like I always said, guys, live your best life, drink more water, stay woke, and if you're mad or sad, go listen to your favorite song, make you feel better, okay? Go listen to your favorite song. But this has been your boy Bright, the R&B kid. Thank you for watching, but for now, I'm signing off, baby. Bye, y'all.
I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no, 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 no. I came to vibe, you came to function, just do that, baby. Don't worry about nothing, no, no, no. Relax just a little bit. You don't gotta worry, you can just have fun.